So now we know this is good. Okay, so let's build that. We have to build 2 functions. One function to read the CID. Basically, what I'm going to do, I am going to read this content, okay? And then the second function, it's going to read every single and build an array that we can then iterate and render every single listing. So then we can see every single property listed and read through them. Okay, so we have to read through every single property. Let's go to Pinata. We're going to be building 2 functions. The first one is going to read the CID, get the data, but then we have to build another one to actually read the data and build the array so that we can display everything in the front end. We're going to be getting file from IPFS. Okay, this is where we are going to be obtaining the file. And then in the second function, we are going to build an array so that we can read every single file, every single listing, okay? Now, very important. You remember when I first began building this function, I told you that this is super important. Now we need to use this value to find the files that we want to render, okay? So with that said, I am going to create a constant called query data, okay? And we are going to say the following. I am going to do a constant, and this constant is going to be query filter because I want to tell Pinata, this is what I need you to tell me, or what I need you to give me. It's going to be metadata, right? Equals name, because that's the property name, and it's going to say equals list data, okay? And it's going to be list data. So we are going to say list data right here, okay? I am going to build another URL because this is a separate API call that we have to do to get the file. And it's going to read as follow. I'm going to just copy and paste right here so I can show you. This URL, let me explain to you. This API pinata.cloud data pin list, it's the URL that it's going to give me this option right here, or this value. It's going to tell Pinata, give me every single list of files that have this particular property name, in this case, a list data. So it's going to go over every single file that I have that the name is a list data. If I show you in my account, you can see right here, I'm going to just zoom in, list data. So every single file that shows list data, I will obtain it. I'm going to obtain it, and then I can build the array. So if we go back, list data, and we will pass the value. What's the value? Okay, query filter. There we go. So we are passing this value. Now we built that URL. Now what I have to do, I am going to say the actual API call. I'm going to say fetch file, okay? And we're going to say await Axios. And this will be a get, not a post function, okay? It's going to be a get. And what am I going to pass? I'm going to pass the URL. And I need to pass another header. But this will be the get header that we configured at the beginning under config. So we are going to pass this one in particular. That will provide me that information, okay? So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to say now get header. Okay, there we go. Let's make sure that we imported that. And yeah, sure enough, it's here. Awesome. Let's see. Get header. Okay, cool. Based on that, once I obtain that value, I am going to expect the response, okay? From that call should include from fetch file, it's going to include data. And inside data, I want to get the rows. The rows are going to be every single file listed with all the information. Okay, so in this case, it's going to give me all the CIDs. And from the CIDs, I need to read the CIDs. And this will be this function number 2. Okay, so I'm going to read the rows. Okay, this will give me the CIDs. Now I'm going to be building a loop that will go through every single value, every single CID, and it's going to provide that information so then I can build the array. I am going to build basically a loop that is going to list every single CID so then I can pass the CID and then start rendering those files and read the information from each file, okay? So with that said, I am going to say now the following. I am going to say output, right? and we are going to call the response that we built previously. That response, ladies and gentlemen, is an array, which means that I can map. When you map in JavaScript, you are effectively doing, quote, going over the list of values, or basically it's kind of a loop. It's kind of a way for me to read every single value inside the array, okay? So we're going to say map, and now I am going to say, what do you want to map inside? I want to map the value that you got inside that, okay? And we're going to now open here, and inside here, I should then obtain the IPFS hash or CID for every single listing, okay? Now we're going to say get CID. We want to get the CID, and we are going to say value because this is what I'm reading from, right? And we are going to pass this. This is what Pinata is going to classify that value, or is going to assign the value that we need to obtain, so then we can get that CID. And then what do I need to return so then we can use that value somewhere else? Get CID, okay? This will be the reading, okay? Now I return the CID, but I return that inside the map. It's internal in the array. I now have to return this as well. So then I can export that outside of this function, right? So what I have to do, I am going to now return the output. Now we obtain the output. Now I can get the output from this call, which means that I'm going to build another function, but this function is to read now the files, okay? But first I need to get the CIDs, or else how I'm going to be rendering them, okay? So let's build one last function. This is the final, I promise. Async function. Actually, there's one more function, but it's to load the files. That's it. But it's very simple, and it's going to be in the index page, okay? So let's go under function, and let's say now we want to read the file. This is the moment where I am actually going to read the information and render everything, okay? So let's read the file from IPFS, okay? And I am going to get that output again. I want to get that information here. So I'm going to say constant output. I'm going to say await get file from IPFS, which is the previous function, okay? Now I am effectively calling this function from this function, okay? So from get file from IPFS, I am going to now, I want to build an array so then I can loop and render that in HTML, which means that I have to build that array. I'm going to call this the list array. And we are building that empty array because we need to start storing information inside there, okay? Now let's build a for loop so then I can add every single attribute inside that array. I'm going to say let I equals 0, which means this will initiate the loop. I'm going to say for, let's build that loop. I, right? I is the first value. If I is less than the output, which means that every single item that you got stored here, if it's less than that, but it's the length, then I am effectively telling the amount of times that you have to go over every item. So this, if there's 20 files in output, then you are going to read 20 files, right? So you're going to go through every single file. And what I want you to do, keep incrementing until that output no longer is less than I, higher. So let's say output is 20. Then it starts with 0, so I'm going to increase that by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until it gets to 20. Once it gets to 20, it no longer matches, so it stops. So basically that's how you stop the loop, okay? So I'm going to open here, and now I'm going to say constant, and I'm going to say value because I want to obtain that from the output. The output, remember, is the information that we need. And I is the actual value of each item. Right? As it goes one by one, I am going to obtain CID1, CID2, CID3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so it's just going to continue on. Now, constant, and I'm going to build another IPFS path because now I need to render that. I need to get that information so that I can display that in the front end. Okay, let's build that entire path once again. We're going to use our gateway. Okay. Now I have to pass the Pinata JWT, but I think it's gateway JWT, not Pinata. So I'm going to type gateway, and let's see. Yeah, that's the one. Awesome. Okay, so we need to build that path once again. So I'm just gonna take advantage of this. The only thing that I have to convert is this to the CID, okay? So now I'm gonna say here, this is the IPFS path, but then I have to use value because that's the information that we are going to use to render that value. Awesome, so now we got value and we got Pinata gateway token, and we need to pass the token itself, which is going to be gateway JWT. Cool. And we're passing the entire URL, so we should be loading those files, okay? And finally, we are going to do the following. We are going to read the contents of each JSON. So I'm going to type constant info. I'm just going to type info. And now I want to use Axios to get and read that file. Axios, that allows me to read the contents, okay? I'm going to say what? IPFS path, right? And then I'm going to send the header. What's the header? It's going to use this header, which is basically telling Axios it's in JSON format file. So we are just going to read every single attribute inside that JSON file. Okay, so I'm just going to add this to the call. Okay, so I'm going to say read header. Cool. Now we are reading each file. Okay, we are loading the URL. We're sending that get, and then it just reads this and it uses the read header. Now with that, I am going to push to that list array. Remember, we created that list array. Let's start filling that array with every single value, okay? So we are going to say list array. Now we're calling the list array, and we're going to type push, which allows me to insert data into that array, okay? And we're going to say info. That's my path, right? What is expected? It is data. And now, very important, what do I need to get from data? It's going to be the content. What are the contents? Pinata content. What's the content? Property info. That's how we read every single thing. Okay, so we're just gonna copy this entire thing, and this will be the value that I need to read. Okay, boom, awesome. All right, and ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Once that's done, I want to send to the front end what? List array with all the items listed. Okay, and we are done here. Okay, we're gonna Control S. Now the final thing, let's build the index. Very simple. I have the HTML file right here, and I'm going to go over it very quick. First of all, I need to build the listings, okay? Which means that I am going to be using useState and useEffect. I'm going to explain to you. You already know what useState means. It allows me to store anything in memory. UseEffect will allow me to run the function the moment the user loads the site. It auto-runs that function and gets that information, okay? Also, I am going to be importing that beautiful function that we just coded, which is a read file from IPFS. Awesome. Which what's going to do, it's going to call the other function as well. Call the other function, get the information, then continue and send me back the information that I need to build HTML and build those listings. I'm going to import also my font. It's going to be SF font, okay? And finally, I am going to be importing JWT, in this case, the gateway JWT, because I need to use that to to call the gateway, okay? Awesome. So what I have to do, I'm going to say constant, and I'm going to list, I'm going to type listings, which is the value that I will be iterating over every single value. So what's going to happen, I'm going to show you right here, is that in the actual listed front page, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to read every single listing. It's going to load the picture, it's going to load all the details, and it's going to show that in the front page. And that is how we do that. We are going to do a map that is just going to regenerate this HTML information right away, okay? Cool, let's do that and we're done. So we are going to say get listings because we need to load that in memory, right? And we are going to say use state, right? And let's tell Next.js that this is just an empty array until it gets filled, okay? I need to build that function. We are going to build an async function that's called fetch listings, okay? We're just gonna call it fetch listings, and that will provide me the array. But then I have to say constant array. I'm just going to obtain from read. Remember, in read file from IPFS, I am returning this entire list array. If I go to array, I will obtain that value here. But then I have to call read file from IPFS. I'm just going to say await read file from IPFS. Once we await that return, then I can use this to render the page. Awesome. All right. Now I need to send that to memory so then I can use that in HTML. I need to use that get listing. Okay. So let's go ahead and get listing. We're going to type get listings, and we are going to pass the array. Okay. This is the return from read file from IPFS. Awesome. Okay. Now what I have to do, I am going to import all the HTML code to render every single listing. Let me show you what we should see, okay? We should see every single listing because we are going to be reading the JSON file and we are going to be reading the picture. So when we hit list my property, this is the application that is running. List my property, we should then obtain all the information and display that in the front page. So let's build the HTML code real quick. Let me copy and paste so that we can display this here, okay? So we have to work with div. So we have to build a div right here, and I am going to close that div. And let me go ahead and bring the information in, okay? Let's do a copy and paste. Okay, I'm gonna add this here. I'm gonna show you real quick. Okay, so now that I obtained the get listing, right? So we passed the array, we obtained that from a read file from IPFS. Now I am going to be updating the state of listings to store all the information from array, all the data that we obtained from this particular constant, right? So we obtained this here, we stored this here, and then we pass the state to here. Now I can then read or go over every single listing that we have stored in this array because we're passing it as a state here, okay? Now here I can actually map, and then I can generate a listing in HTML per each listing that a user has created, right? So every single listing that we created in the front end, in the website, in the application, and has been stored in IPFS, we will just render the information here. So let's say I need to list for property number 1, right? So I equals the number of the property, or in this case, the number of files, okay? So it's going to be file 1, file 2, file 3. So every single file is a listing. Every single file includes the attributes, the year, it's basically a listing, basically a property. Every I equals a property. Inside that property, we have the list. So the list is the value that we are going to call to obtain that particular information. So let's say we want to show for property 1, list that year. It means that we are listing, or we are displaying the year that that property was built. So we will call list.year, and we will see the year that it was built, or the information that was provided by the user. And we have to do this for every single attribute, okay? Check this out, okay? So I'm going to paste all the HTML code, but I'm going to explain real quick, okay? And let me show you right here. Let me close it down below here. We are missing the closing on that map. So I'm going to do that now. Now that we have successfully closed this map, every time that there's a listing, what Next.js is going to do is going to render all the HTML objects. It's going to render the picture, it's going to show me all the detailed information, and we can go back so I can show you every single file and reading that file and obtaining the value and displaying the value, okay? So in this case, if I were to display floors, I am going to call list.floor in HTML. And that's how I display this here, okay? Let me show you. And we are done, okay? So what we need to do, list title. We are going to display the title on the top. Every single property is going to open a division, okay? So it's going to open a div. So div key I for every single file or listing that I have stored in IPFS using Pinata. We are going to be iterating. We are going to be reading every single file, and we will build an HTML object for every single property, okay? So we will build one here, one here, one here. So we are just building, that's one listing. Every listing is going to have, basically every file is going to be generated like this. And we will have a div styling right here that you can see is like a little bit grayish to divide every listing, okay? Awesome. So let me go back. Okay, we are almost there. Now this is very important. Okay, I have to. I'm gonna delete the key because I want to show you. Remember when we uploaded the picture details? We uploaded the entire HTTP path, but we did not provide the JSON web token or the site token because we mentioned that in case I need to replace that key, I still want to use the existing information. If I pass that key, first of all, it's not secure. And second, if I pass the key, I cannot update that picture later on. And I will not be able to open the picture because it's tied to a key that is no longer valid. I could definitely do some workaround using a loop to build a new key and then replace it live as it renders. But ideally, we want to make this simplified, okay? So what I want to do, I am going to pass the entire picture URL, which we built, right? When we stored the information in IPFS, we build the entire picture URL, but we are missing at the end the key so that we can access and talk to the gateway. So what I got to do is basically I got to import gateway JWT, which is the token. I'm going to just import it here. Okay, awesome. We're good. And again, all the information. If I want to show the address, this is the header size, and this is the item, and I'm basically calling list. Every single file is going to be called list.address for every key. If we have 20 files, it's going to be key number 1, give me all this information. Key number 2, give me all this information. Key number 3, and such. And so you are going. And once we get all the information, Next.js is going to keep rendering all the listing in the front page. Okay, we're done. We're literally done. In order for us to render this when the user opens the front page, we need to run this function automatically, okay? Which means that I need to have something calling that function. This is where we are going to be safe by using useEffect. So what useEffect is going to do is going to expect any action or any trigger and run whatever parameters we provide inside the useEffect. Let me do it. It's very quick. I am going to provide fetch listing, and by default, when we first load the page, useEffect will run, and it's going to check what am I going to run, and it basically what it's going to do is going to call the function, okay? So let me just do it for sake of the tutorial. I'm just going to copy and paste. I'm going to show you right now, okay? Awesome. So what I'm doing, basically, the moment that user opens the web front end or access the application, it's just going to trigger this function, which is going to call the async function, and we will get all this information. We will obtain all the listings, right? And finally, we will obtain the array, and then we will send that data here, so then we can effectively display everything in the front end, okay? Moment of truth. I am going to save, and let's take a look. And ooh, awesome. Okay. Remember, this is what we did. Testing a new listing. I added the picture. Remember, that was the last listing that I did. And you can see that before that, we tested some other listings, but we didn't provide the picture. We're still loading it. What am I going to do? I am going now to change the metadata name so that we can generate a completely new set of listings. So we can remove all this and start fresh, okay? Very simple. Check this out. I am going to do the following. I'm going to go here. We're going to go to that Pinata function, right? And we want to change the Pinata metadata list data. Let's change it to something else. Let's change list info. Let's type list info. So now every single property that gets stored in IPFS is going to be appended using the name list info, and then we can search that information. Okay, so I just changed list info here. Now let's go ahead and make sure that when we read the information from IPFS, we're also passing the same thing. And you can see right here, we're not. So we have to also change it here. Now we should generate a completely different website, or at least a completely different listing, because we are now checking this particular metadata name, which we haven't built any files. That's the case. Let's do it. Let's Control S and let's look the front page now. We should not see anything, okay? Because there's no file. If I refresh, there's nothing generated, or there's no property with list info as the metadata name. Let's create one property, and this will be it. We'll make 2 or 3 properties, and you are going to see everything working, okay? List my property. Let's do the first one. Amazing apartment. Beach front. Love to be there. Okay, asking price, $230,000. Let's just do a comma. Year built 2013, HOA 100, address 12345, Royal Avenue. I'm just gonna make something up. Okay, city of say Nassau, Bahamas. Okay, we're just gonna type in a number. This is an amazing opportunity to get this view every morning. Okay, awesome. Floors, it's one floor. There's 3 bathrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 garages. Let's add the picture. We're gonna add the picture. It's going to ask us, and let's find that apartment picture. Let's find it here. Boom, awesome. Name, John Miller. Let's change the last name. J Miller at net2dev.io, and then the phone number 788-234-4455. Okay, we're gonna list property, and off we go. You know what? I forgot something. Let's display listed successfully. Very quick. Okay, let me just do that. We're gonna go back, and I want to make sure that this is complete. Okay, so if we go to list, we are logging receipt, right? But receipt is not going to give us anything. Let me check. And instead of just looking at the hash, I want to tell or send some information, right? I am going to send complete as the result of calling this function, right? And we will, instead of saying hash, I just need to return complete. Okay, so I am not going to return the hash because I am not going to do anything with it. What I'm going to do instead, let's make sure that's the case. What I'm going to do instead is just return complete. Okay, so I don't need this. I don't need this. Okay, all I need is to return the word complete. Okay, now I should expect that in a list, right? So now receipt should tell me that it's complete. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if receipt equals what? Complete. Then I want you to tell the user listed successfully, okay? So if this answer returns complete, then do this. I'm gonna show you real quick. I am going to say listed successfully, and we will display that in a DOM element that I am going to call via ID display result. And if I'm correct, the display result is going to be next to the, okay? So we are going to be displaying right below the form control, so then it shows the message below property info, okay? And you can see the header right here, okay? So we should be good. Okay, but now, in case it doesn't complete successfully, listing fail. So then we have to do an else. Let's go ahead and do the else. So we're gonna do this, boom. So in case receipt does not match complete, then it's property listing failed, okay? So just in case, right? And we're gonna go Control S, and yeah, that should be it. Okay, awesome, let's give it a shot. And let's see if we are lucky. I'm gonna list the property. Boom, listed successfully, awesome. Now, moment of truth, let's go to listed. You like that, you definitely like that. Okay, let's do 2 more and we're done. Let's change something here. Amazing house in great neighborhood. Okay, and asking price 300,000, year build 2020, HOA 100, 12345, Palm Street, and we're going to say Quebec, Canada, 134. Don't miss this opportunity. Floors 2, 2, 2. Let's just do 3 floors, 2 rooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 garages. Let's add their property. And we are going to add this one. We should change. Awesome. Seller is going to be Martha Miller, M. Miller, at net2dev.io. Oops. Okay. And 766. Okay, cool. We're going to list it successfully. Let's go back. Beautiful. Awesome. There you have it. I think it's going to work. If I do another one, it's just going to continue adding. Okay. That's it. Hope you like this tutorial and keep building. I know you'll make it. Did you love that? You can now call yourself an IPFS connoisseur. You can actually build very powerful applications and send all that data to IPFS and leverage Pinata to store and protect that information. And I bet you like that. I know that there's so many great ideas that you can implement now that you have the power to leverage Pinata with your application. Backups. Who needs backups? Centralized people. They do. All right. So that's it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. And if you do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to. Hey, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.